Hello and welcome to Arena FPS News, episode number 28. Now, there's been a little bit of a gap since the last one we did, but due to circumstances that there's been no news, and we've been doing something a little bit different, which is a podcast. If you want to check that out, then you can watch us on twitch.tv / I think, Arena FPS. That's probably it. And you can check it out live on Fridays, every other Friday, and we also upload them to YouTube. And they're kind of similar to the news show, but a bit more discussion-y, and usually cap it off with a topic. Last week it was how or whether developers should have responsibility to their players in computer games, or Arena FPS in particular. Also, we have a Patreon now, which is on Patreon /arena_FPS. I'll put the link in. So if you feel like supporting us for prize pools for tournaments and all the wonderful things we do, then don't hesitate to go Patreoners. So, shall we start off with the actual news?
Yeah.
So, ESL has picked up UT4. What do you think about
that? It's early days, but I don't know. I don't think ESL picking up a game is like a huge deal when it comes to the size of the tournaments or anything. I think it's the ESL New Games brand who picked up Wickland.
Yeah.
This year, and it was just it's great because it'll put some competitiveness into the competitive scene of UT, have more little cups for them, but I don't think they should be doing any sort of major cups until the game's further developed, but it doesn't sound like that's what this is, so I think that's good.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. It's it's really good that they've been picked up, but at the same time, I think it's going to be a while until we really see the fruits of this development. But hopefully, like sometime in 2016, we'll kind of maybe even have regular UT tournaments and regular UT ESL games. That'd be awesome. Just seeing Arena FPS back in like these series is really nice.
They had a seasons thing, didn't they? What happened to
that? Oh, the UT season.
Yeah.
That was more kind of. It wasn't necessarily a competitive thing. It's just like a way to market the game. So like. From this time to this time, there's going to be this season. You can get these cosmetics if you play the game.
Oh, I see, right.
It's really just kind of an in-game thing to allow players to kind of have something like progression-wise to do. It's more of a marketing thing than anything else, as far as I understand.
Okay, then this should be helpful for them then. Helpful to get the competitive scene going.
Certainly. Insight. So they've had another video. I say they, it's him. They released this week, and it looks pretty cool. Whenever they release something, I'm always kind of pleasantly surprised by the quality of it, and this one has really picked up in the old social medias. It's got 12,000 views on YouTube.
We don't get 12,000 views on YouTube.
We're looking to get 12. But yeah, it's like that's the kind of level of attention that UT gets on YouTube, which is really, really good for the guy. And hopefully be able to kind of take that enthusiasm and just carry it forward.
Yeah, I'm really rooting for this guy. It looks like a really fun game, and he's got some really interesting and unique ideas. And in this video, he demonstrated a new idea, which he hadn't demonstrated before, which was less powerful alt fires that fire through walls and stuff. So you can make use of the whole seeing your enemy through the wall and stuff like that. And it seems quite interesting if it's balanced correctly, which with testing it should be. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yep, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got. I think actual testing from him would be really cool. It's I don't know how long it will be until he can get it live, but I get a kind of a Arms of Tellus vibe from the game. It's very much it's a bit niche, but the niche it kind of feels, or like the angle it takes on Arena FPS is really fresh and new and interesting. And I think that alone is enough to hopefully garner some mainstream interest. Although it's kind of Wickland in a way, where like they did something a bit niche and a bit different, and it didn't pay off for them. But
yeah, I mean the difference is a lot of people weren't at all interested in Wickland's ideas when it first started showing them off, and then when it came out, not many people were interested. But there's been quite a positive reception of pretty much every video this guy puts out among Arena FPS players and people on kind of like default subreddits and stuff. Everyone seems pretty interested.
Yeah, I'd agree. Next up in the patch-up, we have Reflex 0.38. So this patch dropped yesterday, while we were actually recording this news, but we had to re-record it. And yeah, it is like fancy as. It's really...
It is.
taken like the UI and just pushed it to the next level, and it looks like it doesn't look out of place on like a AAA game. I don't think like the amount of options you get, especially for mouse acceleration, is just like you don't see that in any other game really.
Yeah, it's a huge step up in just polish. It looks great. It implemented a bunch of extra cool features like the mouse XL and stuff like that.
Yep, mouse acceleration. Subframe input is where essentially the input isn't tied to your frame rate, so you always have 1,000 like hertz input. It's not necessarily useful for most players, but for like the edge cases where you might have lower FPS and like other players, it makes the game experience a little bit smoother, a bit more consistent, which is nice. A lot of people have been asking for that for quite some time. Also, the iron cannons had a bit of a buff by 1 damage, and I think that's mostly been fairly well received. There's the odd person which is like, oh, I like my rocket launcher, I do. But apart from
that's
them,
every update to any balance in any game. There's always that. I think it's a good change. I think it could do with a little bit of. I mean, I liked the faster fire rate, lower damage thing, but I think this is a nice middle ground. I wouldn't want to see it at 7.
No, God, no. It's. I think this is about as far as you can push it, but at the same time, it feels in a good state where it is, especially like relative to the other weapons in the game.
Yeah.
Also, cosmetics. Did we talk about that yet?
Nope.
Okay, so cosmetics are in Reflex, which is pretty exciting. I mean, a lot of people. Actually, I've been surprised actually by how many people have been interested by it. I think it kind of pays dividends to how like the community really supports the title and how much like they're willing to put some more money into the game to see it succeed and continue development.
I think they also mentioned about how in the future they are considering updating the weapon models.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Which, yeah, that would be cool. And I wonder if there's going to be cosmetics for them as well, so you could have different options. I don't know if they've said that will happen, but they have said something about the style of the cosmetics they just made has helped influence the style they want for the weapon models. So I wonder if and when we'll see a change to those.
Yeah, I personally like weapon model cosmetics, but I know some people are like, well, how would I know what weapon they've got out? And I think,
but they've got quite a strict color scheme in Reflex.
Yeah,
they could even just stick to that color scheme and change the shapes.
Like more so than any like Quake Live, the color scheme's fairly muddy. I'd say like a shotgun doesn't look that much different color than. I can't think of another weapon.
And even an LG.
Yeah, like all the weapons are like fairly small and not very assuming, whereas like the bolt rifle in Reflex is huge, and as long as they keep like the similar dimensions and the similar colours, I think if it looked slightly different, especially from the player perspective, that wouldn't be an issue at all. UT patch. So this was quite small, and there wasn't a huge amount to it really. All they've really added is a new gameplay shell called CTF Plaza, and the rest of it's mostly improvements. I mean, I'm not going to read through all these patch notes, but essentially it's just they seem to be doing, I don't know if you're aware of the like Intel processor like cycle where they do like a big update. I think it's called Tick and Tock, and they do a big update which improves things a lot, and then they do like a more of a minor increase. And they seem to be doing this kind of philosophy with UT where they do like a big update, and then the next one's going to be more fixes to the previous update and fixes to the game, and then do another kind of content update, which I kind of like. But what I've heard from Cafe is it's struggling a little bit at the moment because they're having some issues with like the game crashing. So I don't know what's going on. I've not had any problems myself, but if that is true, then that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, if that's true, it's a shame they haven't kind of just fixed it instantly. So if the game's been left in that state, I mean, I don't even know if it is the case, but if the game has been left in that state, that's not great. But
yeah,
I guess they're off for Christmas now. Hopefully we'll see a big tick patch after Christmas, and then it will sort it all out.
Yeah, big content patch. And I imagine they'll probably do a new season after Christmas. I'd expect that's the case, because the season that we had is finished now, so I expect they'll have like a spring season or not winter season, I don't know, whatever they call it. What's next? We have Toxikk. So this was a little bit of a surprise to me. They've been fairly tardy on their patch cycle, but they released a deck patch in, I want to say October. I think it was around October.
Yeah, a long while back.
But it's not well, considering the patch before deck was like June or something. It might be
Well,
July.
yeah.
It's like
It's not compared to their other ones.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty lengthy, especially for the amount of content they add. Because compare it to a Reflex patch, for example.
This is about the same time between like this patch and the previous patch is about similar from CTF patch and Reflex and the patch we just had on Reflex. But you're right, the content is very dissimilar, and I think it's because they added a new map that looks gorgeous, and it takes a while to make a map that looks that nice, and it's really a payoff which I think a lot of players are not willing to put up with, where like even though this map does look great, they've got 5 maps in the game now instead of like 4. So
yeah, and it's not like they're good maps, a lot of them.
I don't know, I've not played them enough to tell you how competitive or good they are. Like, they look pretty, but one of the maps I'm not too sure about. I think deck is alright, but it's deck, you can't really get it too wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's a game that by all rights, if it had released 2 years ago, it would be doing very, very well. But in the current like scene where we've got UT, we've got Reflex, we've got Quake Live, which had a bit of a resurgence as well. Like, all these games are probably doing better than they have like for the past like 18 months, I'd say. Like right now, then it's in a much harder like situation to carry players through.
Yeah, I actually think it's a fun game. It's just it seems like they're prioritizing the wrong things and working a bit slowly, and and like you said, they've just got insane competition with UT and things like that. So it's a real shame, but it is a good game, and I wonder if they can kind of revive it with some sort of genius in the future. I'm not sure.
Yep. Talking about another game that's got stiff competition is Warsow. So they've just released a new patch 2.0, and again, like, this is a pretty cool patch actually. There's a tutorial which I've never played Warsow before, but I jumped into it and I did the tutorial, and it was refreshing to see a decent tutorial in an arena FPS game. It's usually something that's forgotten. There's a is it Crash that does the one in Quake Live?
Yeah.
And it's alright, but it's like, it's so like, the difficulty jumps up so high. Like the first two, I know the first one's the strafe jumping, like the first two are pretty simple. Then the third one, like, it took me ages to get that, and it, like, I feel like they just didn't put enough time into the tutorial to teach you, or maybe they approached it the wrong way. But yeah, Warsaw's tutorial is pretty cool. It kind of got me into it a little bit. And apart from that, like, just performance improvements, spawning algorithm, stuff like that. It's like, oh, the flipped map sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to try that. On maps I'm familiar with, I'd love to try a flipped option just for fun.
Yeah.
It's just a fun little feature to have. And I think things like the tutorial are really good because they're hoping to get it on Steam soon. I mean, they've been hoping to get it on Steam for ages now.
Yeah.
But when it does hit Steam, which they seem to be saying is relatively soon, and people get Warsow, it'll be free, so people will see Warsow. Lots of people have heard of it. It's quite an old game. They'll jump into it, and then bam, they've got a tutorial right there that teaches them everything they need to know. So I think that's really good. I hope it kind of boosts the game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that it's kind of sits there as an article in my mind of the games that came out a few years ago that never really took off, and hopefully maybe a bit of a resurgence of interest in the genre might help it a little bit. But again, it does have like games that are a lot more actively developed that it's competing against. So I don't know, it might. I think Steam would help it a lot, certainly.
Yeah, and it's got its own little community as well. Steam will just grow that.
Yeah.
So even if it doesn't become a blockbuster, you know, it's not always the worst thing.
True. And it'd be good if they had more kind of publicised tournaments. I've not really seen anything like for Warsaw tournament-wise.
Yeah, it always catches me by surprise when it's a Warsaw tournament because I often had no idea it's coming.
Yeah, and we tend to have a fairly good idea of like what's going on in most of these games because we spend hours on Twitter and Reddit and stuff. But like, yeah, when a game isn't like, it doesn't get its message out to like the community that cares about it, it's maybe needs to do a little bit of a better job like getting the message out.
Yeah,
that's to you, one Warsaw viewer that's like, cheers every time you mention your game. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the news. Is that anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. There's definitely cool stuff coming in 2016. We'll probably have another podcast maybe before the end of the year. The next one's scheduled on the 25th, so I need to like work out how to move it from then to be another day that's less shitty. But we'll discuss games and stuff then, whenever that is. But yeah, more tournaments next year, more wonderful stuff. QuakeCon 2016, hype.
Hype. Yeah. Reflex 0.39.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. I think 2016 is going to like really see a lot of growth in the game and arena FPS gaming industry.
Yeah, like they all started this year, most of the new games, and then hopefully they'll kind of really get their stride next year. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think they're like getting to the point where they're more marketable now. Cool. Well, thanks for watching. We'll have more content for you very, very soon.